Hi guys, how are you doing? Hope you're all well and safe and having a great day. I'm having a pretty good day apart from my hair. That seems to be doing its own thing as normal. Ready for an haircut, I think. But apart from that, I'm having a fantastic day. I've been playing around with Realistic Paint Studio. The palette knives, you got to get into the palette knives. This is a painting I did starting not really intended to use palette knives at all. Started one way, started experimenting, a little bit abstract perhaps for some people's taste, but I really like it, and it's all about palette knives. So here we are in Realistic Paint Studio, and today I'm going to do an oil painting, and I'm fancy working on that vertical easel because I'm going to do a landscape that is in actual portrait mode. Just checking out the different options for the background, but I like the first one, so I'm going to go with that. I like the name, Admirable Painting, or whatever it says. I can't quite read that. I'm looking at the screen because this is a voiceover that I've recorded after doing the painting. I did an actual real-time voiceover, but I messed up and recorded it with two separate mics, and it sounds like I'm at the bottom of a well, so I couldn't use that. So anyway, I'm looking at the brushes. I'm doing this oil painting and I never know what they are, so I'm going to start with the brush right in the middle, and I think that's a thick, I've discovered or come to the conclusion that that's a thick oil paint brush, and this is the painting that I am going to be doing. So I'm going to start off picking the colours off the colour wheel, and I'm just going to begin by sketching in loosely the scene. So it's not the normal way I do an oil painting. Usually I like to get a colour over the whole of the canvas and maybe do sort of some tonal colours in it and then start working into that. But this time I thought I'd do it different because it's a new app, so let's try things differently. And I'm just starting to sketch in the trees, and I've discovered straight away that with this brush, if you'll see that it'll pick the colour up off the colour picker, but eventually the paint runs out. It seems to run out, and then it's just pushing the colour around on the canvas, using the same colour as the canvas almost. So you need to keep picking the colour, which is quite nice if you don't want exactly the same colour all the time. It's a nice way to be working. But I'm really feeling it. I've only just finished the painting actually about 20 minutes ago, so I've still got all of those emotions going through me of what I was doing and what I was feeling at the time I was painting it. I'm trying to keep my head out of the way of the picture as well, best I can. So I've sort of changed the format of the iPad videos now, where I record with the camera straight above the head, and so you get to see all of my hand movements and so on. I think you get a lot more from it, and people have said that they prefer that. So moving forward, I'll probably be doing that because I'd had trouble doing this sort of screen grab part that I used to record on the iPad. That was giving me issues. I think it was because I'd actually filled the iPad drive up and I had to delete a lot of stuff, so maybe it'll be alright, but I quite like this. I think you get a much better experience and showing you exactly what I'm doing. So while I was doing all of this sort of a little detail, just working on a smaller area, I was very happy with this thick oil brush, but when I start to trying to block in a large light area, it dawned on me that this brush wasn't cutting the mustard, man. It just felt like it was taking me forever, and I needed a bigger brush. I needed a decorator's wool brush, like when I was painting that mural, something of that line. You can see me there now, getting a bit frustrated. I'm sort of really sort of scribbling a little bit faster, and I go onto the palette there and decide to start picking the colours off the palette as well. And they're colours that I mixed up in the last painting I did. So I'm not mixed anymore. I was just using those. You can see, look how fast I'm sort of trying to scribble, and I'm not totally feeling that brush right there. So at some point I'm gonna think, hang on a minute, there's got to be another brush. Here we go, and I go with that sort of big blocking in brush, and straight away I realise it, and it feels like the bristles are much thinner and softer, and you get a much more delicate application of paint, which I really like for this bit of the painting. So you really got to choose the right brush for the right job with this app. So some apps you can, as I've shown, lots of times you can use one brush and it works for everything, but with this app you can't do that. You've got to experiment a little bit more. And what starts out with using sort of basic paintbrushes here, as I experiment, I start to get into the palette knives, because I haven't really used those before, and this painting turns into more of a painting with palette knives than it does with paintbrushes, because I get really excited about it, and so it will change quite drastically as we progress. So stay with me, because what starts off using these paintbrushes does change, and I've used palette knives like I've never ever used them before. I got really excited about it, and I just love the result. Probably won't be to everybody's cup of tea, I have to say, because it's bordering abstract, but for me, I like it because I love experimenting and trying different things, and just pushing boundaries all the time. You don't want to keep painting the same picture over and over again. And what I mean by that, I don't mean the same scene. You just paint every different scene you do in exactly the same way, same style. And when I was learning to paint watercolor, I used to go to a watercolor class when I first started, and the lecturer there used to say that there were pot boilers. Don't get into the habit of painting, or fall into the trap of painting pot boilers, where you just paint the same style over and over again, and you can knock them out, and they all look very competent, but they've got no real life to them or spark. And I've seen painters, I've known painters for sort of 20 and 30 years, and I look at the work now, and it could have been a painting that they'd painted 30 years ago, because they've just done it in the exact same style, and it gets boring. And that was, I quite often mention, I had a sort of a painter's block for a long time, which lasted nearly 15 years, and that was it's a lot of personal reasons why that happened, but it was also I felt that I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was getting bored, because I was doing the same thing with the watercolors every time. I could just sort of knock them out and produce them very quickly, and it wasn't stretching me, or it wasn't exciting, and it was getting quite boring. So it was really when I discovered digital painting that I got back into it. And all the while I've been painting digitally, I've been, I like to try different apps, not because the ones that I'm using are particularly don't do what I want to do. They do, but I'm always out there, wanting to try what else is on the market and what's available, and then experimenting with different brushes and trying to get different techniques and things. So a lot of my stuff, they look they've been painted by different painters, really. Sometimes you get the really way out, almost abstract stuff, and then now and again I'll throw in something that's a bit more detailed. But this, I'm just sort of blocking in these colours with this big flat brush, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm kind of wondering where I'm going to go with this. But at the minute I'm liking it. You can see, looking at the reference image, how I'm sort of putting it together, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm trying to get those greens to lead you in to the painting. I really like that photo. I love the rich greens of the grass, and that's not a stream, that's flood water that's just flooding the path. So I think right, okay, let's think about a different brush now. And I'm never really sure what the brushes do, because they're not labelled, but this one I've discovered is a flat brush, the third one along. It's a short flat brush actually, and it does give you this really nice flat edge. It'd be cool if you was doing sort of brickwork or roof tiles or things like that, but I found it perfect for this, just getting in the detail of the trees. Just sort of changing the colours as I'm going, because again it does tend to pick up the colour underneath it, so that the brush gets dirty or runs out of paint and then starts smearing around the colour that's underneath it. Just changing the thickness of the brush there, look. So I'm left-handed obviously, so I've set it so that all the controls are on the right, and then I can just adjust those. I'm not so sure as if I like the idea that I'm working on that canvas. I don't know if it was a distraction or not. I could have had more area to paint on, but I felt like I needed to see the canvas while I was painting, whereas if that canvas wasn't there, I'm sure I would have been working on a slightly bigger image. But that's just me. So I've got the brush set right down to as small as you can get it, so it's almost like a lining fitch, I suppose, just painting those trees. And there's a bit of a fence as well that I need to put in. I've never had really any idea how I was going to finish this or come up with the end result, and I'm just putting paint on, thinking all the while I'm doing the trees and that first, and sort of working on them, because I don't really know what I'm going to do with the foreground. I've got no idea at this point, and I'm thinking, I hope it comes together. I really do. So what brush? Oh, I'm still on that lining fitch. Not a lining fitch, a short flat brush. And I like this one because it does put the paint on. Some of the brushes work. The ones I'm trying now, this one kind of works more like it's smudging the paint, which I wasn't such a big fan of, and I tried it for a little while and then put that away. So I am coming up with favourite brushes. I felt this one and the next one I try would work Really nice if you was painting a portrait and you wanted to do some blending. That would work okay. So I sort of give up on that one, and then I try that one. I've gone back to the oil brush. Then I try that one that looks more like a watercolor brush, and again, it works. It feels more like a blender, as this one does too. I didn't try the fan brush. So again, I'm thinking portraits be nice for that, but not, not for this. Or if you're doing, if you're painting a vase and you wanted a nice curve on the vase, or you're doing some blending work. So I suppose if you're into blending, you've got a set of brushes there, if that's your style, that will be perfect for that. But they're not the ones that I'm drawn to, because I'm not big into blending. I like to see the brush strokes. Right, I'm just going to fast forward now to get to the palette knife work, because up until that I'm just sort of laying on more colour. So here we are at the exciting bit. I choose this palette knife that's like a rake, I guess, and as soon as I did that I thought, wow, that's perfect for the grasses. And look, straight away I'm getting really carried away and excited with what I can do with that. And I'm thinking, first of all, I'm just thinking, oh, all that sort of edge work, all the bramble and stuff, that works really well for that. And I just sort of gingerly start at it, and you can see if I tilt the pen I get thin lines, and if I apply it to an edge we get those big flat strokes. So you can see how I'm controlling the pen there to adjust those strokes. And then I discover that if I press on hard, I can apply paint, I believe. Yeah, there we go. I think it's at that point I discovered that. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is transforming it. This is how I'm going to do the grass. So by now I'm well into it, and I'm thinking a little bit more thoughtful. When I first went into it, I was just going here, there, and everywhere with it. But now you can see I'm taking my time a little bit more, and just being a bit more thoughtful where those strokes go. Heavy pressure, you get the colour being applied. I start to look at the source photo and think, right, we need some darks in there. Just look at it. I mean, it's so cool that. I guess there's brushes that do that in other paint applications, but the nice thing about this, it's sort of, you're not just colouring the canvas with a rake, you're actually smudging the paint that's already on there, and that's what gives it that real thick oil paint effect that you're not getting in other apps that don't support the thick paint or the wet paint even, you know. I'm using it there to try and get a few twigs and branches into the trees, because I thought I can't just use it on the grass, I've got to use it a little bit more in other areas as well, like in the trees, because I want to keep the painting looking uniform and not like I've got two different paintings, one of the trees and one of the grass work. So this has now gone from painting with the brushes to painting with this palette knife, and I'm just loving it. I was really excited when I was doing this. And then at some point I'm going to start thinking, I wonder what other palette knives they've got in there. What else can we do? Does that look digital? It doesn't look digital to me. That looks really really natural. So now thinking, right, okay, let's see if we can put some highlights in, as well as, I mean, I've just been painting dark colour before, so you can put the highlights in, and then it still smudges with the paint that you've already got. At this point as well, I don't know if you notice, I am starting to make the canvas bigger so I can see those brush strokes instead of working on a tiny little canvas. I'm zooming in a little bit more. I love this when you discover something and you get really excited about it, because it's something you've never ever done before. Just making marks. And I'm learning how to use the palette knife as well as I'm going. I'm realizing I can put the paint on and then I can blend it. And now I'm thinking, okay, let's try the others. What do they do? So this one I like, because look at that texture. Straight away I'm thinking that's the one I want. So that's the first one in the stack. And I get a really nice, with the first brush stroke, I get a really nice scumbled effect. Look, you see that? And then others, it's not quite so good. So that took a little while, and I think the deal was if you put pressure on, you get that scumbled effect. But if you only apply light pressure, it's like dragging the paint. Look at that. That's great for that tree. Look, beautiful. So I've now got these the rake palette knife, leaving all these grasses and that, and now I'm creating a different pattern and a different shape with this other palette knife, which for me really starts to make it come together. I'm getting even more excited now. I think I thought that was a little bit too much, yeah. I just love all that sort of scumbled on colour that's like, if you zoom in, it's just an abstract mess. but when you zoom out again, it all becomes part of the water soaked field, I guess, and pathway. So this palette knife took a little bit more getting used to than the first one, but I did like it a lot. I really like it. Look at that. So I'm feeling now that shape at the front center is leading you in up to the trees. So I'm happy with how that's going. Get a few more darks in there. I bet this would be cool working on a portrait with these palette knives. I bet you could get some really nice effects. Back in with the oil brush. So this is the thick paint brush. I don't think I did a lot with this. I eventually decided to go in with a rigger. So I'm taking the brush size down. Oh yeah, and I start painting in a few branches. And I was looking at the photo and I thought, yeah, the branches are more overhanging. They're not just jutting up. So I can see that that brush, it just wasn't working for me. It's just, can you see, it's just smearing the paint. So after a few tries, I have to give up on that, and I decide to go for that little pointed brush, which I'd call, well, it's not exactly a rigger because it's not long enough, but a thin pointed detail brush. And that started to give me what I want, because I've got a kind of I felt the branches are what give it the realism that makes you put the scene together. It sort of makes you think, oh yeah, we've got some trees going off here. And I'm putting these in thinking they're a bit too dark, let's get them out and go for something a bit lighter. First ones I put in is too orange. I think that was where we left it. Yeah. And I love it, the way that it works, like the paint, like some of the brush strokes will go on nice and others it's just sort of smearing the paint. And I wonder if there's an algorithm that knows how thick you've got the paint on in one area, so it starts to smudging in other areas. It goes on nice. I don't know. It feels that way. It definitely feels that way when you're using it. I don't think I would have ever painted something like this in Artrage. I don't think it lends itself to it the same way this app does. I think this has got a freshness to it and spontaneity, which for me absolutely works. I just love it. What do you think? I'd like to know your opinion actually. Does it work for you? Is it a bit too far out there? Do you like the idea of painting fresh, almost abstract colours? And do you paint in a similar way every time? Do you want to think about painting in a different style or trying different things? What's amazing to me, this looks like, I mean, it's taken us so far about 35 minutes with the speeded up bit in there, and it looks like it's a 15-minute painting. So I'm just making a little bit of calligraphy marks on there. Oops, got the head in the way. I've done so well as well. I think I was leaning forward there trying to I don't know, get a better look at it. I'm sure I'm thinking I'm getting close to the end. Oh, I need to put the fence in. I'm not we're still missing that fence a bit. I think that needs to go in there. I like the colour palette as well. I've really got to grips with greens. I struggled for so long, literally years, with greens, and I think I finally got there and feel comfy using them. And I think that's down to working with pastels, using I'm signing it, look, so I must think it's finished, but it's not, because I haven't done the fence. Yeah, so using sort of pastels, traditional pastels, and working with the greens and that sort of really opened my eyes on using lime greens, real yellowy greens with next to blue greens. Look at that, look at the colours, and they really work. So steer away from the colours that are actually what you would call grass green, and work with the more yellow greens and the blue greens, and you get those really nice vibrant effects. There's the fence going in, look. I think that painting's full of light as well. I hope you like it. I hope you like it as much as I like it. There we go, that's it. I think that's finished. Stop it, Stephen. That's finished. So what I need to do now is just I think scroll through the I'm still going to do some more fiddling. I want to look at, you've got this option of saving your painting. I'm talking about something now, I don't know what. Oh, I'm not finished painting. Here we go. I use this final palette knife and just pop in a few. It's like applying, this one is like applying paint rather than pushing paint around. I forgot about this, and I use it to pop in a few highlights, and it's like scraping the paint on with the palette knife. And I really like that. Fancy forgetting about that one. So this is the last palette knife in the palette. And it also puts a real thick layer of paint on, look. You've got to be careful though, because it does kind of take over this a bit. So once I've got on all the colour where I felt I needed a few highlights, I then go back and get that rake palette knife and just soften off the odd edge. Here we go. Go back for that rake. That's it. There. That's made such a difference. So glad I did that. That's it. Now I'm going to go in and look at the options where you can impose your is that right? Superimpose the painting into a scene, and I really like this because I use this for the thumbnails. So I'm sort of just going through them all, and that's the one I settle on. So that one, I'm thinking it's a bit arrogant, you know, going in with these old masters and putting my painting in the middle of them. I don't know as if I could. I feel comfy doing that, so I give that one a miss. And I just don't like that one at all. That's not my bag. So I'll flirt through that. And I thought that one was really good, but because the painting's so messy, is it messy? I guess it is. The old thumbnail looked a mess, so I go back to the original one, and I like that. But I decide eventually to go with the last one. So there we are. That is my oil painting in Realistic Paint Studio using lots of palette knives. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up as always is much appreciated, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I've got lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them all with you. So don't forget, everybody, stay safe, stay sane, and keep painting. Bye.